Welcome to the Monday Meltdown, where every Monday I have the conversations with you guys that I'd usually have with myself in front of the mirror. So sit comfy, grab your drink of choice, and let's get into it. So I want to talk about universal credit today, or job seekers allowance, as someone who is 23 years old and has already been on it twice in my life. Now, benefits in general is a little bit of a taboo subject in the UK. There's a lot of shame attached to it. There's a lot of ridicule. So I definitely don't think it's something that the typical young person really envisions for their 20s to find themselves on universal credit, let alone twice. I will say, I think that's crazy, to be honest, because the more I think about it, of course young people are going to find themselves on job seekers allowance at some point in their 20s, surely. I mean, whenever you might leave the education system, whether it's after school, college, university, or an apprenticeship, you're not guaranteed a job. After all of those things, you're never guaranteed to walk straight into employment. Everyone has different circumstances. Not everyone's parents can financially support them. So of course, young people at some point would find themselves on universal credit or job seekers allowance, surely. But it's really not something that's ever really spoken about as an avenue that you can go down if you need it. I was never taught about this in school. I remember being 15, 16, having my PSHE lessons in school, and when it came to applying for colleges and everything, we were spoke at in depth by loads of different teachers about all the different avenues that we might find ourselves going down at different points in our life. College, university, they were really trying to peddle the fact that you don't have to go to college or university, you can do apprenticeships or internships. There's so many different things that you can do nowadays, and you don't necessarily have to go down the traditional routes. Really trying to show us that we had all these different avenues to go down, but we were never taught about anything to do with benefits, tax, buying a house, credit scores, or any of that stuff. And to be honest, I think that's some of the most important stuff. I mean, I'm 23 now, and despite having been on job seekers allowance twice, there's not many more different benefits that the UK government offers that I could actually name. Why aren't we taught in school that, at some point in your life, whether it's next year, whether it's in 20 years from now, you might find yourself on a benefit. And that is okay, but here is a hand-picked selection of a few of the benefits that you might find yourself on in the future, why you might find yourself on that, and how it all works. Universal credit, job seekers allowance, housing benefits, childcare benefits, disability benefits. Not everyone is born disabled, for example. We'll all become disabled in later life when we become elderly. Some people have accidents. So surely it only makes sense to teach young people about benefits. And the fact that it's not is crazy to me, because when I found myself for the first time in the position of needing to go on universal credit and job seekers allowance because I didn't have a job anymore, I had no idea what to expect, and it was daunting and it was scary. I honestly didn't even know where to start in applying for it or what that would look like. And it's so simple, really. I Googled it, figured it out pretty quickly, and from there it was all self-explanatory. But if I'd have had that lesson when I was 15, 16, it would have taken away so much anxiety surrounding the whole situation of finding myself, unfortunately, unemployed, unsure where to go, unsure what to do, at a bit of a crossroads. I would have had that reassurance in the back of my mind being I've been prepared for this. This is normal. It happens. But I didn't. And that could be so easily changed by making it a part of the curriculum in the UK. So I first found myself on universal credit when I was freshly 22 years old. I was a teaching assistant in a special needs school. I had been at that point since I was 18 years old. So for the best part of 4 years, and unfortunately, for personal reasons, I had no other choice but to resign from that position eventually. Not only was I good at it, but I loved it as well. And that's not something that I ever took for granted. A lot of people don't like their job, but they have to do it because a job's a job. And I felt very, very lucky that I liked it and I was good at it. Not everyone likes what they're good at, and not everyone's good at what they like. And I felt like Everything had just perfectly aligned for me. And then all of a sudden, I was handing in my resignation with nothing else lined up and no idea of what the future held for me anymore. So yeah, that was so scary. But in hindsight, it really didn't need to be. Now, I definitely think it's worth mentioning that I was in the privileged position to still live at home with my mum and dad, who were financially stable. So I never had to worry about having bills coming through that I couldn't afford to pay, going hungry, or going homeless, because I had the universal credit coming in. Granted, not a lot, but it was enough to like pay my phone bill and that. So in the grand scheme of things, my bills were small. I had a roof over my head. I still had my family. I had my friend. I had my boyfriend. I had air in my lungs, and the world kept spinning. That is the best way I can describe it. I remember waking up on that first day of not having a job and thinking, oh, okay, the world hasn't collapsed. My house is still standing. And then it was the same the second day and the third day. And then all of a sudden a week had gone by and it was fine. I was just living life. But to be honest, the added benefit was I didn't have to be up at 7 a.m. every morning to go to work. Obviously, as part of universal credit, you have to be actively looking for new employment. You have to be actively looking for a job, which of course I was doing. But to be honest, especially our generation, we're so used to technology and everything. I was sitting in the comfort of my own home on a laptop, applying for jobs every day. You know what I mean? It was nothing. Bit of TV on, bit of loose women, bit of YouTube on in the background, can of Coke. Like, it was just how I would spend a weekend, really. It wasn't this stressful situation that I thought it was going to be. I was applying for jobs every day. Apart from that, I had no other control of, when I would get a job or what job I would get. That was out of my hands. All I could do was apply for the jobs every day. I just had to think what will be, will be. And in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy this time of not really having anything to stress about. And that's what I really didn't expect. And I realized after a couple of weeks, oh God, this is the first time in my life since being 4 years old, entering the education system, where I don't have a plan. I'm out of education and I'm out of work. After I finished college, after that summer, September rolled around, I started my job as a teaching assistant. So, literally since starting school to having to resign, I was either in the education system or working full time. So in a weird way, how I described it to people, it was a bit like I was forced to take a gap year, a pretty crappy gap year. I didn't have any money and I wasn't traveling. I was sitting in my living room in England. Felt like I wasn't tied down to a job. I could use this opportunity to reinvent myself, really evaluate what I wanted to do with my life. And the circumstances that put me there were really crappy, but I was there nonetheless, and it was shaping into a somewhat positive experience. And what ended up happening is I did reevaluate my life, what I was currently enjoying about it, what I wasn't enjoying so much, what I wanted to do in my career. I wanted to do something creative. I've always been a creative person. When I was in college, I did acting and drama. I'd always done content creation and social media as a hobby. Back in school, I had a YouTube channel, and I was like, why don't I see if I can get back into that? So yeah, it turns out I was able to turn a really scary, unnerving experience that made me really unsure for the future into quite a positive opportunity to be able to do anything with my future. And after deciding that I really wanted to get back into the creative industry and do something in that avenue, I came across an advertisement on Channel 4's job page for a course that they were running called Content Creatives. And Content Creators is basically a paid internship type course where they teach you content creation, digital content creation, and then you get a work placement to put it all into practice. And I thought, oh God, with Channel 4 as well. And I applied for it and I got it. I think there was 24 to 30 of us on the course, and we were told that in total they had about 5,000 applicants from all over the country. So we were all just like felt so lucky to get onto that course, and it was honestly one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life. And it sounds cringe, but I genuinely do believe everything happens for a reason. I had an 8-week training course with a partner company called Sharp Futures that taught us all about different things to do with digital content creation, podcasting, idea generation, YouTube, TikTok, algorithms, what's going to make a good video, developing marketing campaigns. It was like so much fun. And then everyone got put on the different work placements, and my work placement was with 4 Studio with Channel 4. 4 Studio is their social media like powerhouse where they create everything that goes on their social media channels. And I was just able to like be there as like a little bit of like a paid intern or like apprentice kind of thing, and just watch people work, help people work on my own projects, shadow people. A couple of things that I created actually went live on Channel 4's Instagram and YouTube pages. And most importantly, it was just so much fun. And I met so many really cool people doing it. And as I said, had the crappy previous situation, ending up on universal credit and everything never occurred, I would have 1, never reconsidered my career. 2, never been looking for a job right around the time that Channel 4's content creatives applications were going live. 3, I never would have ended up applying. It ran from September 2024 to March 2025. So it ended just a couple months ago. And that's why I now find myself on universal credit again, because now that I have that experience, I can now go and try, apply for jobs within the creative industry, within like social media and doing stuff. I just haven't got there yet. Obviously applying for things and everything, but I just haven't found the job yet. And that is okay. And again, despite, sitting down and applying for jobs every day for a good chunk of the day, I still find myself with a lot of spare time. And this time I thought, I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to do something that's beneficial, both to me on a personal level and also a creative level. And that's when I've decided to try and get back into content creation. If it is only ever a hobby, well, in the meantime, before I get my next job, I'm practicing my skills, practicing my editing skills, keeping fresh, keeping relevant, creating content that go in my portfolio to send to people to potentially get hired. And I also just enjoy it. I really find it fun. And yeah, I'm on universal credit for the second time, but who cares? Because had I never gone on it the first time, I wouldn't be where I am now, which is a place that I'm really, really enjoying and having fun. So to conclude, you never know where life is going to take you. You never know when life is going to throw you a big fat curveball. And that curveball might one day be having to claim benefits, whether that is universal credit, job seekers allowance, or otherwise. And I would honestly go as far as to say that is perfectly normal. It is just something that happens. Benefits are a thing for a reason. So if you ever find yourself needing them, don't feel shame. Find the silver linings and use it as an opportunity to pursue things that otherwise you might not necessarily even have the time to do. I'm back in the creative industry now, and it's because I took that time to really reevaluate my life and what I was doing. But I had considered before then, while I was still in full-time work, oh God, it'd be really cool if I could get back into doing something creative. I thought about it before. I just did not have the time. I was in full-time work. I was also autistic, so I get burnt out really easily. So, after work, I want to chill. Weekends, I want to be able to chill, see friends, have time to myself. I don't want to be still on the go, still on the grind, whether that's making videos. I mean, my partner and my parents would always say, why don't you join like an amateur dramatics or something like that, like on the weekends? Because as I said, I used to do acting and drama and absolutely loved it. And I was like, I know from a literal like timetable perspective, I do have the time. Like if I found an amateur dramatics that ran from 2 till 3 on a Saturday, I literally, from a literal sense, I could do it. But mentally, I just don't have the capacity. I'm knackered after I get home from work Monday to Friday. The weekends are the only time that I have to rest, recuperate, see friends, go out if I want to go out. I just don't really have the capabilities right now to engage in a high maintenance hobby. Because amateur dramatics and like creative stuff like that, they are really high maintenance hobbies. It's not just 1 or 2 hours at a weekend. It's then when you're doing shows after work, going to rehearsals, learning lines, doing the shows, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, if I worked part-time or something, which I couldn't afford to do, but you know, hypothetically, if I did work part-time, yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to do that as a hobby, but that's not the reality I live in. And I don't know if anyone watching this is in maybe a similar situation and maybe understands and can relate to that. But yeah, I didn't have the time. But once I was on universal credit, I did. And I was like, let's not waste it. You know, I could so easily sit feeling sorry for myself, apply for the jobs, do what I need to do, but then just sit doom scrolling on my phone for the rest of the day, or watching TV or napping all day, which who could blame you for wanting to do that, to be honest? But I was like, no, let's actually use all this spare time that I've got to benefit my life. That has been a silver lining of the situation that I find myself in. So if you are in a similar situation or think that you could potentially find yourself in a similar situation one day in the future, I hope that there's something in there of what I've said that you can potentially take with you. If you are in a similar situation currently, like now, I hope this has been like helpful just to hear someone else's perspective who's in a similar situation and know that you're not alone and that positive things can come out of negative places. I've been drinking a Coca-Cola today. Please let me know down in the comments what drink you've been having for the Monday Meltdown this week. And also please let me know what you thought of today's episode, your opinions on the topics that we've discussed. Let me know any future topics that you'd like me to discuss in future Meltdowns. And if you are going to stick around, then I will see you next week for another Meltdown. Bye.